Welcome, everyone, to BoomerWorks. We're delighted to have everyone here. My name is Shira Lotzar, co-founder of our little organization, joined by my volunteer partner here, Michael Butera. And we are just so excited to welcome Janet Falk, who is a PR and marketing, has a PR and marketing communications firm. She's an expert communicator, as you might imagine. And she's also become a networking maven. And she is here to share her pearls of wisdom, giving us very practical very practical tips of how to make the most of in-person and virtual events. So if you have questions, as you likely will, make sure to put them in the chat. And then every so often, Janet will stop to address them. And since we're probably going to have a fairly small group, at some point she'll stop her screen share, we'll have a conversation, and hopefully you'll get a lot of rich, practical tidbits out of her discussion. So Janet, take it away.
Thank you so much, Shira. I'm excited to be here and to talk to your group. Now, you may know someone who is uncomfortable walking into a networking event where they don't know anyone in the room. And they may be thinking, what if nobody comes up to talk to me? What am I going to ask these people about? I'm so nervous. How am I going to manage? And in fact, you might even be that person. So I am here to give you practical tips so that you can walk confidently into the room when you're going to a networking event. The members of the organization who are the leaders and officers of that group, they will want to talk to you. They will want to court you because you will have introduced yourself to them in advance and they know that you're coming. You're going to ask them thoughtful questions that they will respond to so that you can get to know them better. And you will listen to their responses and take notes so that you can follow up with them later. And in all these ways, you will increase your comfort level going to a networking event. So let's begin and say, why networking? Why does anyone go to a networking event if they're going to be nervous or uncomfortable, if they're not going to know anybody else who's in the room? Well, I'll tell you the answer. It's because networking is the best way that you can build a new business. Now, many professionals say they get their best clients from referrals. And where do referrals come from? They come from your network. So if you want to be growing your business, then you have to be developing your network because referrals come from your network, and that's how you're going to grow. Now, I want to stop for a second and think about what are the goals that you might have when you're going to a networking event, and how can you prepare yourself and act in a way that you can develop these goals and achieve them. So I'm going to stop for just a minute here. And if we could invite the members who are attending to share what are your goals when you go to a networking event.
And feel free to open up your mic.
Now, you're not going to collect cards because that's not a reason to go to a networking event. What are your goals when you go to a networking event?
Or maybe it's been a long time since you've gone to a networking event pre-COVID. What were your goals?
Oh, I'll get you started. Just to have something. Well, one of my goals is always to meet new people, people I didn't know before.
That's a good one.
One of mine is to reestablish relationships with people I already do know, right? To kind of make that face-to-face reconnection, go deeper, hear what's going on in their lives, how we could possibly synergize. So that's sort of the flip side of the coin.
Yeah, you want to meet new people and you want to reconnect with the people that you already know.
Yep.
Okay, let's move on because we're not getting other responses. So these are very similar to the goals that I have posted here. And I'm going to let you scan these just for a moment so that you can think about these different kinds of goals. And then I'm going to explain in more detail what these goals are and how it is that you can achieve them. So here we are with our first goal, which is to recruit resources. Now, in my way of thinking, everyone has a problem. Now, your problem might be that you need an accountant or you need a new vendor for some reason. And if everyone has a problem, then everyone else represents a solution. Now, it may not be a solution to your problem, but it may be a solution to someone else's problem. And so when you're going to a networking event, one of my goals is to recruit resources. I want to find out what is your problem and see if there's someone in my circle of contacts who could provide a solution to that problem. Or maybe you have a solution and that makes me think, oh, I know Mary Beth and she has that kind of problem. You would be a great solution for her. So in that way, following up on what Michael said about meeting new people, you want to meet and connect with at least 3 people when you go to a networking event, so that you will be learning what are their problems, what are their solutions, and who in your circle of contacts can you connect to this person with a problem or this person with a solution. So let's think about recruiting resources when we go to a networking event. Now, here's a second goal. It's a little bit different. And that is you want to be seen as a resource. You want to be making introductions because you know people who have a problem. You know people who have a solution. And believe me, it's not the first person that you meet. It's somebody else who stands in their circle. So I'll give you an example. I was a member of a networking group that was consultants who advised nonprofit organizations. And I did public relations and marketing work. And I was chatting with this fellow who was a guest of someone who was a CFO for nonprofit organizations. And we got in a conversation and he explained to me what his business was. And wouldn't you know, his company became my client. So this was a person that I didn't know. He was a guest of a member of the networking group and he became my client. So it's not always the first person that you meet, but this person was a guest of someone that I met. And then going down the road, how are you going to follow up with the people that you meet? You're going to mention to them, this contact suggested I get in touch with you, or I thought of you when I met this contact, and so I want to connect the 2 of you, just like this CFO connected me to this fellow who company later became my client. So being seen as a resource, making introductions, facilitating those connections, and then the follow-up, acknowledging how that connection came to be made. Here's another goal. You want to, as Shira already mentioned, maintain contacts with the people that you already know. If you are a member of a networking group, then you're attending their events weekly, monthly, however often they occur. And what do you want to do? You want to catch up with the people that you already know. Find out what's new and different. What's their latest success? How can you be even more helpful to that person? So just as you want to meet new people with Michael, you want to connect with the people that you already know, as the example Shira gave. Here's another idea. You want to learn from the speaker. The reason that person is at the front of the room, just like I am talking to you on this webinar, is because they have a specialized knowledge that would be helpful to the people who are attending the event. So take this opportunity to listen closely to the person and take notes. And then you're going to find a way that you can share what it is that you learned from the person. Are you going to tell other people at your company? Are you going to tell your clients? Are you going to write a newsletter article about it? Are you going to post on LinkedIn? Because this is hot off the press and everybody needs to know this great information that you heard from the speaker. So in addition to meeting new people, catching up with those that you know, you want to be listening to the speaker and finding out what's new and different, what has changed, and find the way that you can be sharing that insight and that information with people who are in your circle, people who are in your company, people in your community, people who subscribe to your newsletter, or who are connected to you on LinkedIn. Now, Shira also mentioned keeping up to date with what other people are doing. You want to find out who is growing their business, who is hiring, do they have a new client, did they change jobs, are they opening a new office, are they relocating, have they published an article, is there a newsletter, have they been on a podcast, have they given a presentation somewhere? You want to keep up in an informal way about what's new and different happening among the contacts who are in your circles. And that might be vital information that other people need to know. You want to circulate that information and share it. Maybe someone is expanding their staff and they need to hire more people. And you might know someone who's a recent college graduate looking for a job who would be a great candidate. So as you are connecting with people and learning what's new and exciting about their business, think about how you're going to share that information and who it might be helpful to.
Janet, can I punctuate this with a very nice story? That
Please.
highlights what you're talking about. So Janet, I'm also a connector and a convener, right? Obviously, BoomerWorks is an example, but I have another group that I run. It happens to be for association CEOs. And I'm sharing this because a few months ago, one of our participants, a guy named Brian, worked for a nonprofit. And unfortunately, the nonprofit lost funding. Everybody got laid off, right? Because they had to close the organization. So he wrote me privately and he goes, "Hey, Shira," he goes, "would it be okay if I sent the list of all of these now downsized employees by 17 people? If I sent the list to you, Shira, would you please send it out to the whole group?" There's like 90 people in this group. I said, "Of course, no problem." I did. I found out about a month ago, one of the other CEOs in our group hired one of the people on that list.
Yes.
Power of networking, right? You never know where you can be a resource for someone.
Right, exactly. I mean, here someone shared this sad news and you were able to share this in a positive way.
Right. And someone else
And
got
circulate that information and someone got a job out of it. Yeah, that's a great story.
Go be a go-giver is what is, if you've ever read the book. It's a great book. Go-giver.
Yeah. Okay, so now I want to point out that when you do all these things, when you recruit resources, when you meet new people, when you keep up with the people that you know, when you circulate the information that you are receiving in these casual conversations, then you will be seen as someone who is in the know. You will be seen as someone who has their finger on the pulse of what's happening in that community, or in that sector, or among the members of the group. And what will happen? Other people will look to you for introductions. Other people will come to you and ask you for referrals, just like this fellow contacted Shira and said, "Can you help me in this way?" Because she is someone who is known as a person who is in the know and is a connector. So now I want to pause for a second here before I go into my tactical approach and see if there's any questions or if anyone else has a similar story that they would like to share of having this kind of success.
Or if you're nervous about going to these kinds of networking events and maybe looking at this list and saying, "I'm a little overwhelmed by this," right? And if so, we're happy to address that too. Janet, I'm sure, has lots of pearls for that.
Yeah.
Michael, you want to share any networking successes?
I've had a whole, let me open my camera here a second. I'm sorry. I don't want people to just stare at me as we're going on. Yeah, I've had a ton of them, and I'll give you just one example. I was standing at one of those tables at one of those events, eating finger foods like you often do, and two people happened to come up, and they were talking about a problem in their association. I introduced myself and told them what I did, and the conversation went on a little bit longer. And I said to them, "Well," I said, "if you're interested, send me a note, and I'll send you a proposal." And the person said, "I already like what you have to say. Let's do it." I mean, just like that, I had a gig that paid pretty well, I might add. So these things do happen, in interesting ways.
You never know unless you show up.
That's right.
Right, you have to be in it to
Gotta
win.
show up. Mhm. Anyone else want to share an example of a networking experience, even if it wasn't at a group necessarily, but you just, were in some sort of casual environment? All right, Janet, want to keep on going?
Okay, all right, so now we get to the tactical part of this program, which is your plan of attack. And I want to point out to you that I am the only person I know who does this particular plan of attack. Once upon a time, I was invited to an event. It was the young professionals of a nonprofit sector. And they sent an email saying, if you're nervous about networking, then, you should ask these kinds of icebreaker questions, which frankly were very lame. And they also said, if you have any questions about the event, then you should be in touch with Tammy and Bert, right? So I got in touch with Tammy and Bert, and I said, I'm looking forward to coming to the event, and, I have an idea about something. And they responded back to me. And then when I showed up at the event, I said, did you get many emails of people asking questions about the event? And they said, only 2. Now there were, 70 people at this cocktail party for young professionals who work in the nonprofit sector. And yet no one took the opportunity to contact Tammy and Bert, whose email addresses were right there in front of them. So this is my plan of attack. And as I said, nobody does this, but you will find that you will stand out if you do follow these steps. So the first thing that you do is you go to the website of the host organization. And what you're looking for there are the leaders of the organization. And I mean the president, the vice president, the membership chair, and the program chair. Now, all these people know everybody else who's a member of the organization because that's their job. They're the officers, and they're there to keep in touch with the members and to promote the goals of the association or the networking group or whatever it is. So while you're on that website and you've identified the leaders of the organization, try and figure out their email addresses. Now, many times they'll have their email address there, or it'll say president@nameoforganization.com. So you'll be able to get in touch with them in advance of the event, and you're going to introduce yourself to them. This is what I call pre-event marketing. It's a way that you can send a signal in advance to the movers and shakers, the leaders of the organization, that you're coming. And this is what you're going to say in your introductory email address. First, you're going to send this subject line. Will we meet at the, whatever the date is, I say here, September 2nd. Will we meet at the networking event taking place on September 2nd? Why do you do that? Because you want them to open the email and they know the date September 2nd because they are an officer of the organization. They know the networking event is coming up. And when they get some random email from Janet at janetlfalk.com, they don't know who I am. And they're likely to not pay attention to it, except I am using the key phrase networking event on the given date. So you start off by saying your name came to my attention as an officer of the name of organization. Always start an email with you or your. That way the person thinks that you're talking directly to them. And you want to explain how it is that you learned their name, because otherwise they're going to think you're some kind of spammer who wants to sell them some other kind of garbage. So your name came to my attention as an officer of the name of the group. I'm interested in attending the networking event because I am a person who deals with people in your industry. You know, I'm an accountant who deals with people in this industry. I'm a public relations professional who deals with people in this industry. In fact, one of my clients is a member of your organization. So you can understand why I would be interested in attending this event. And I'm thinking of joining the organization. So now you have identified the person. You've explained how you got their name. You've explained why you are interested in joining the organization, because you are a professional who's either in that industry or works with people in that industry. And you're interested in becoming a member of the organization. You're looking forward to meeting them, of course, and learning more about the group. Now, Shira, if you were to get an email like this, as I am describing, that says, I'm introducing myself, here's how I learned your name, here's why I want to join your group, what would you do if you got this email?
Well, what's interesting is that I've been that volunteer leader multiple times. So if somebody had written out to me like that, I'd be going to seek them out. Of course, I'd respond to them, but I'll say, you know, looking forward to meeting you, and, you know, I'll be searching for you. Of course, I want them to become a member, right? So
Right.
it'll be the organization's best interest for me to build a relationship. And not only that, I will probably want to recruit them as a volunteer. You know,
Right.
small nonprofits and chapters and networking groups, they're always looking for volunteers, right? And they want to get you on the board, or they want to get you on the committee, or they want to whatever, which is a fabulous place to extend your network. But as a volunteer leader, my goal would be like, hey, let me recruit you, right? So you can get more involved.
Right, right. So that's exactly what's going to happen. You know, the leader of the organization, the president, the vice president, the membership chair, the program chair, they're going to jump up and down and say, I got a hot one here. I'm going to write back to this person. They want to get involved in my organization. I want to get to know them. So what are you going to do when you write back to them? You're going to say, thank you so much, Shira. I'm even more excited to attend the event. And I want you to know it's going to be a very crowded room. So I'm going to wear this distinctive article of clothing, so you will be sure to find me. Okay, because Shira said, I'm going to seek them out, right? So how will she find them? Because this person is going to be wearing a green tie or is going to be wearing a blue blazer. Now, I had this experience where I was speaking at the New Jersey Bar Association, and I didn't know anyone who was going to be there. In fact, I had only been on one conference call with the other panelists where I was speaking, so I didn't even know them face to face. So I couldn't find who was the leader of that particular section of the small and solo firm group. And I couldn't find any names of any committees that were associated with it. So I just looked at the agenda and I identified all the speakers. And because they were all attorneys or consultants, they all had websites. So I was able to figure out their email addresses. And I wrote to every speaker and I said, I'm looking forward to attending your session. And I want to learn more about whatever it is that they're talking about. Except, of course, the ones who were simultaneous with me. I said, I'm sorry I can't attend your session because I'm speaking at that time, but I hope to meet you anyway. Okay. So I went to the 2 morning sessions and then came lunch. And at lunchtime, I went to the ballroom, and it was a huge ballroom with 300 attorneys. And I had told the people that I was emailing that I would be wearing my royal blue blazer. So there I was, just seated in some corner of the ballroom. And guess what? 4 of those speakers found me in the 300 attorneys who were at this ballroom eating lunch, because I told them I was wearing a royal blue blazer. And not only that, one of them was a person who was a business development coach who worked with attorneys, and she and I really hit it off. And over the next few months, she referred me to clients. So can you imagine? I warmed up the room by writing to the speakers in advance. I told them how I would be dressed, and 4 of them found me in the room, and 1 of them referred me to clients. So you can see how this works, reaching out to people in advance, letting them know that you're interested. And as Shira said, I want to be in touch with that person because they're interested in joining the organization. Okay, so continuing with our plan of attack, you're going to post on social media that you're excited to attend the event and that you've been in touch with Shira and Michael and you're looking forward to meeting them. And this is a way that you can show you're supporting the organization. And the people who are members but are not officers, they will get the notice too on LinkedIn and see that you are supporting the organization. Now, this is what it would look like. I'm looking forward to attending this networking event of the name of this important group, and I'm going to meet Shira, and I'm going to meet this other person, Pat Wilson. I'm going to learn about what they do and about their speakers, and here's a link so that you can register and join me too. So you've done all this work in advance of the event, warming up the room, reaching out, building what I call your welcoming committee of people who want to meet you even before you walk in the door. Now, the day of the event, you're going to go back to your list of the president, vice president, program chair, membership chair, and you're going to look them up on LinkedIn or on their website because you want to see what they look like so that you will recognize them when you get to the event. And you will know a little bit more about them. You'll have an idea of what they do, and you'll have an idea of what questions you want to ask them. Now you go to the registration table, you're going to get your name tag, and then you say, I'm here to meet Shira Lotzar. Can you point her out to me? And they'll say, oh yes, Shira, she's over there in the red dress. Now, what are you going to say to her? You're going to ask her about what it is that she does. You're going to ask her about why she's active in the group. You're going to ask her, what was your latest success working in the group? You're going to ask her, I'm a public relations professional, or I'm an accountant, or I'm a systems manager. How can I be helpful to this organization? And you'll notice you're not really talking about yourself. You're talking about the other person. You're talking about their involvement in the group. So you don't have to worry about being nervous or being uncomfortable because the other person is trying to court you so that you will become a member of the group. And now that you've had a robust chat with Shira or the next person, you're going to say, you know, I've really enjoyed speaking with you, Shira, but I'd like to meet Pat Wilson. That's the president of the organization. Will you introduce me to Pat? And what's Shira going to say? No. Of course she's not going to say no. Yes, she's going to say, Janet, come right here. I'm going to introduce you to Pat because Pat is the president and you will want to have a conversation there. And that is what you do. You connect with the people in advance. You tell them what you're going to be wearing so that they will find you. You ask them questions so that they will court you as a member. And then you ask each leader, each officer to introduce you to the next person on the list because they want you to become a member of the group. And it's always a good idea to take a photo of yourself and the people that you meet because you're going to be able to share that on social media. Now, what happens if you can't figure out the group officers? You can still find out when you go to the registration table who are the movers and shakers. Ask for the names of these people so that you will be able to find them in the crowded room. Because, as I say, they know everyone else who's in attendance, and they are the ones that you want to meet. All right, let's stop for just a minute here and ask, is this something that you would feel comfortable doing? Reaching out in advance, identifying the officers, and then following up with them when you meet them in the room.
And if not, why not? I know most people are not natural networkers, right? So that's why we're here, right? To help you infuse a little bit of inspiration of how to do this. So what are your thoughts around everything that Janice shared so far? Holly.
Yeah, I think this all makes sense to me. I think I have a little trouble with making the initial connection point. So like actually finding an email. Like, so I'm not necessarily just talking about a networking association event, but just networking in general, I guess. But so maybe that's not applicable to this, but otherwise it makes sense to want to make a connection beforehand, that the person's like on the lookout for you, and it's not just a you're not going into the event without some initial purpose.
Right, right. I would point out that, if you're reaching out to someone and they're a member of they work at a company, and so there's, hundreds of employees at the company, you're not going to be able to figure out their email address. There's one place where you can find almost everyone in business, and that's on LinkedIn. You can send someone a connection request on LinkedIn and say, I'm interested in attending this event. I look forward to meeting you. And, and perhaps we can have a conversation. And in that way, you'll be reaching out to them in advance. And if they accept your connection request, then you'll get their email address and you can take that connection back to an email correspondence and pursue it further. So I would point out again that the officers of the organization, whatever group it might be, it doesn't have to be, a national professional membership organization. It can be a local chamber of commerce. And anyone who is an officer of the organization is committed to its health and vibrancy and will want to recruit new members like you to come to the event. So if you cannot figure out their email address, because they're not attorneys who have their own business or something, then you can always find them on LinkedIn. Okay, is there anyone else who finds that this is a workable solution, something that they will be able to implement?
I also want to mention that if for whatever reason you can't find names and you haven't done this step before, worst case scenario, when you show up to that event, the person at the registration desk can actually be a very good connecting point for you, because that person typically knows all the leaders, all the volunteers, and you could simply say to that person, look, I'm new to this event. Excited to be here. I noticed on the website that's Pat Wilson is the president. I'm really interested in meeting with him. Can you point him out to me in the room? Right? That kind of thing. So at least you have a point of contact. You can make a beeline. Hi, Pat, I'm new to the event. Really interested in the organization. Would love to have a quick conversation. Be like, oh, okay, great. I mean, that's the job of volunteer leaders, is to do that recruitment. So you can always warm up the room right away by having the registration person make that intro.
Mm-hmm. Right. Very good point. Thank you, Shira.
You know,
Okay.
I was going to say another way to mine emails, and I've used this. Sometimes, the websites don't have their email ID. They just have a general contact piece. And the LinkedIn one is, a LinkedIn address. So if I go to an event, I often ask the person at the table for their business card, which I almost always get. And you say, well, why would I do that? Because email addresses have a distinct way of being set. For example, let's take Shara. If we looked it up and we saw that the person's card we had was jfalk@xy.com, you can almost bet that the president is S. Lotzar at. It's almost all, and the worst thing that's going to happen to you is you get a note back from your provider that says unable to deliver the email.
Right, yeah, and you know, some people also don't put their direct email address on their website, so it might be info at name of company, but then you can put in the subject line for name of person, right? And then the email will be directed to that person.
And also on LinkedIn, if you do end up connecting with someone, a lot of people only put their personal address in their contact info. So all the more reason why, if you're at the event, make sure to get a business card.
Right, right. Well, we'll get to business cards in just a moment. Okay, so now you went to the event and you completed your goals, right? You recruited resources, you kept up to date with people that you didn't know were going to be there, but you found out they were going to be there. You learned from the speaker, you're collecting information that you're going to be able to circulate with others. But what else are you going to do now that you've been at this event? I would recommend that you post something on LinkedIn. You can say, I had a great time at this networking event. I met all these people. I learned so much from the speaker, and I'm going to share with you this photo. And how would this look for you to be able to post on LinkedIn? What it is that you accomplished, how you met your goals of recruiting resources and meeting new people and connecting with others, right? Great networking event at this, whatever the name of the group is. And so I met Shira Lotzar and Pat Wilson, and who was the speaker? Sydney Brown. And they talked about this and that and the other thing, which I found supremely interesting. I'm going to join the organization and I'm going to be at their next event. And of course, you know that by putting the @ symbol in front of the name of the group and in front of the name of the people that you met, that will turn bold and they will be notified. So other people who are affiliated with the group or who are connections of the people that you named might also see this information. And it's always more interesting to have not a straight text, but a visual element. So here I am at an event I attended. You can see me in my royal blue jacket so that people will be able to find me when I go to an event.
Janet, would it be okay if I bragged on somebody and showed an example of the kind of LinkedIn post that you're talking about?
Yeah, please.
Great. So this quick story is that I am supporting somebody who is trying to get into a certain part of the aviation sector. She's come from the aviation world. She's shifting into a new sector. And so she got involved with an association that's in sort of that world. And on her own, I didn't even tell her to do this. On her own, she's doing exactly what Janet's talking about. Every time she either goes to an event or before she goes to an event, she's just promoting. That's even why I even know she does this, because I'm on her feed. And her name is Marva Gordon. I believe she's even been on this call before. And this is an example of what she's done. And she does this all the time. Here's the group, Airport Minority Advisory Council, right? That is promoting their own event. She forwards it, she reposts it, and she's promoting them, right? If you need support and guidance, blah, 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 come to this August conference. And she is just doing that all the time. She does this with PMI, the Project Management Institute, right? She's promoting their chapter event, all the stuff. When she comes back from the event, she posts and puts a picture of herself, like arm around the shoulder of somebody. I mean, she's getting traction, right? Because people are seeing that she's an active part of the community. So especially if you're shifting, right? You're trying to go for different sectors or what have you, get involved with the organization that's in that sector and then show that you're an active participant.
Right, because then people will see that you are in the know. People will come to you because they will want to get more information about what it is that's going on in that sector. Okay, so here's other things that you can do after the networking event. You can post an update on LinkedIn, as we just showed you, and as Shira was talking about of her colleague. Then you're also going to send a note to all the people that you met who are the officers of the organization. You collected their business cards, right? You had a conversation with them, right? You want them to know that you are interested in being recruited as a member. You are planning to join the organization. And so this is the way that you can cultivate that relationship. Now, it could be that you didn't get to meet the membership chair because they weren't in the room, they were traveling, or were so busy, you were meeting so many other people. You can say, I'm disappointed that we didn't get to have a conversation, but I did enjoy speaking with, Shira and Pat and, this other person, so that they will know how serious you are about joining the organization. And they will see that you are already connected to the other officers of the organization. So this is an opportunity for you to reach out, even if you didn't get a chance to meet with that person during the course of the event. Now, of course, you want to build this relationship, so you're going to arrange to get together with them, whether you're going to meet them for coffee or you're going to have another kind of meeting where you'll be able to discuss what it is that's going on and how it is that you can get involved. Okay, a mainstay of networking events is your elevator pitch. This is, as I'm sure you know, where you succinctly summarize something about yourself that other people need to know so that they will want to continue the conversation with you and learn more about who you are, what you do, what kind of problems you like to solve, what kind of solutions you represent, the kind of clients and industries that you focus on, and so on. So I'm going to take a moment here, and I'm going to give my elevator pitch, and then I'm going to ask you to critique it and see if I followed the criteria that I have outlined. When you see someone in the news and they're talking about your area of business, do you think, why are they talking to that person and not me? I'll tell you the answer. Reporters call the people they know. They don't call someone that they've never heard of. I'm Janet Falk, a public relations professional, and I introduce my clients, who are attorneys with a small firm or a solo practice, to reporters so that they can be seen in the news and attract new business. If growing your law firm or your business would be supported by being featured in the news, then you should talk to me. Janet Falk, Public Relations. Now, let's see if I followed the guidelines. Was it 30 seconds and between 75 and 84 words? Because that's how much space you have. If you're going to certain networking events, they only give you 30 seconds and then they ding a bell and that's the end of your time. So you want to make sure that you can be succinct in your presentation. Did I summarize a skill? Yes, I said that I introduced my clients to reporters. That's something that's hard to do, but I have figured out how to do it in a way that makes the reporter interested in talking to my client. Did I explain who is my target client? Yes, said that I work with attorneys who have a small firm or a solo practice. So now you can be thinking, do I know any attorneys who might fit Janet's criteria, who might be interested in being in the news? Did I explain how I help the client? Yes, I said I introduce them to reporters so that they can be seen in the news and quoted in stories. Did I give my name? Yes. Did I explain a call to action, what you should do? If you're interested in being featured in the news, then you should talk to me. And I hope I spoke clearly so that you could follow along. So I want you to be thinking about your elevator pitch and how it lines up with these criteria. And let's start with the do's and the don'ts, with the don'ts going first. Do not say this. My name is Neri Green and I am a manager at Green Grass and Meadows. That is so boring. And if you're in a room where people are saying, my name is, by the time you get to the fourth person, you've already forgotten the first two. So instead, what you should do is this. Think about the first 15 seconds so that you can capture the attention of the people who are in the room. And I recommend that you start with a question. Start with a story, a narrative, or start with a shocking statistic that people don't know. And what did I do? I started with a story. When you see someone in the news, Do you think, why are they talking to that person and not me? Everybody wants to be in the news, for the right reason, of course. So this is something that when you're in a sea of people, my name is Mary Green, you're going to stand out and people will sit up and pay attention because they want to hear something different. A question, a shocking statistic, a story that will make you more memorable. Here's another tip. Do not speak spontaneously. Then you're just going to ramble on and you're not going to know what you're saying and it's not going to capture anyone's attention. Instead, you should practice your elevator pitch. You should polish it. You should time it so that you know it's only 30 or 45 seconds. You heard me rattle mine off, right? I've been doing this for years, right? So you have to be able to practice your elevator pitch so that you can do it at the drop of a hat. I once gave a live presentation about networking with another person. And we were in a room and we had been passing the baton back and forth to talk about different aspects of the topic. And suddenly, during the elevator pitch segment, my colleague turns to me and says, Janet, what's your elevator pitch? And so I pretended, I'm so flustered, I don't know what to say. And I said, you're supposed to do this section, Stephanie. And she said, no, come on, Janet, you can do this. I said, in front of all these people? And she said, Janet, come on, you're a pro. And so I got up there and I rattled off this very same elevator pitch. So if you have practiced it enough, then you will be ready at the drop of a hat to be able to deliver your elevator pitch. All right, I'm going to ask if someone here is so brave that they want to volunteer so that we can listen to their elevator pitch, which presumably you have been practicing all along. And let's see how it lines up with these criteria. Is anyone so brave?
And I know that a lot of times we have people on BoomerWorks who are very new, just maybe conceptualizing their business or just started and are trying to put everything together. So it's very likely that a lot of people haven't come up with this pitch yet. And so if you want to just even share with us a couple of ideas, maybe you haven't crafted it yet, but you say, well, this is what I do. And I think this is, maybe a direction I want to go. We are happy to help you mold a little bit of clay. So feel free, this is a safe space and you can share some ideas. Anybody brave?
I have to tell you, Shira, that a few years ago, I was in a room of people and we were all there because we had recently lost our jobs. And we were practicing different techniques and, taking different workshops so that we could get back into the workforce. And this was in 2009, which you may remember was the year of the recession. And it so happened that I was the first person who was asked to give my elevator pitch. And after I gave my elevator pitch, which was more or less what you just heard, the room went silent. Nobody wanted to go after me.
Yeah, because you set the high bar, right?
Apparently I did.
Most of us don't have it all together, right?
Yeah, apparently I did. Okay. All right. So you're going to have to practice your elevator pitch. And by the way, if anyone wants to contact me after this workshop, I'm happy to hear your elevator pitch. I give a complimentary 30-minute consultation, and I'm happy to review your elevator pitch with you. Okay, so now you're in the networking room, and let's think about what are you going to ask the people that you meet. So I like to ask certain kinds of questions because I want to find out, as I said, everyone has a problem and everyone represents a solution. So I want to find out certain things when I ask you problem and solution questions so that I can be mentally scouring my network and see who aligns with that problem and who aligns with that solution. So here's my first question. How do you help people or companies, because I'm not sure who you're dealing with, how do you help them? Do you help them to save time? Do you help them to save money, or do you help them to make more money? Now, I will confess, I started my career on Wall Street, and so I'm always thinking about time and money. But that may be a little bit different for the business that you have underway or the business that you're planning. So you may focus on certain kinds of people, certain kinds of companies, and what is it that you do for them? Do you help them to save time? Do you help them to save money? Or do you help them to make more money because you're either in investments or you're in marketing, or you do something along those lines?
Or maybe you're in the nonprofit sector, right? And you help people to advance their mission. There's all kinds of things that you can help people do.
Right, well, there's a separate question, which I don't use it often, but if they're in a nonprofit, then I ask, do you bring more joy to the world? Right, so if you're working in the nonprofit sector and you're dealing with certain issues, then you are saving the world or bringing more joy to the world. All right, so my second question is, what was the highlight of the last year or the last quarter for you when you were helping whatever client that was? So in our culture, unfortunately, we're really not allowed to brag very much. It's all about the team, right? But I don't care about the team. I care about you. I want to know, what did you do in the last year or in the last quarter that was very helpful to your client? Something that if you were not involved, it would not have worked at all. And why I'm asking this is because this will tell me a few things. It'll tell me what kind of client you work with, what kind of problem you like to solve, and how it is that you solve that particular problem. So by getting this information, I can continue to scour my network and think, who has that problem? Who is in that industry? Who would need that kind of solution? And no matter what you say, I'm going to say, oh, that sounds difficult. How do you do that? And when I do that, when I ask that question, how do you do that? Then you're going to dive even deeper and explain to me some of the steps that you undertook in order to develop that solution for that particular client. So think about who it is that you help, what it is that you did for them, and be prepared to give a highlight of why this was so important and so valuable to the client, and how if you were not involved, that would never have happened so successfully. This is your opportunity to brag, and give it to the person that you're in conversation with, because they don't get to brag very often.
By the way,
Okay.
this applies to you even if you've just started your business and don't have any clients yet. You can
Mhm.
reference accomplishment stories from your previous employers because in essence, they were your client, right? You did work for them. You hopefully had some good accomplishment stories. And if those accomplishments are in all related to the kind of work that you're going to be doing, you can go ahead and say, when I was at such and such organization, this is the impact that I had.
Or even just establishing your business can be your success. Think about that. Okay, here's some more questions. Who are you looking to meet, or who are you looking to meet here, right? So I was at a particular event. We were all consultants who advised the nonprofit sector. And I met Rachel. Rachel was a recent graduate. She had just completed her master's in public administration. And we got in a conversation, and she told me that what she was most interested in was social impact. Oh my goodness, I said, you have to talk to Bruce. I see him over there. Come with me. And I took Rachel by the hand, and we went over, and I introduced her to Bruce. And I said, Bruce, this is Rachel. She just graduated with her MPA, and she's interested in social impact. I thought you would be an interesting contact for her. Well, they got into a conversation. I excused myself because I didn't have to be there. And 2 weeks later, Bruce hired Rachel. Now, was Rachel looking for a job? Of course. Was Bruce looking to hire someone? I don't know. But when he met Rachel, he was so dazzled by her that he found a way that he could hire her. So even though Rachel's goal might have been to connect with people and to find a new job, that might not have been Bruce's goal. He might not have been looking to hire someone, but he saw this opportunity. And how did that happen? Because I recognized that there was someone else in the room. Who are you looking to meet here? So Rachel had a solution and a problem. She had an expertise in social impact, and her problem was to find a job. And Bruce didn't know he had a problem. His problem was he needed to hire someone to grow his practice, but Rachel became his solution. So who are you looking to meet, or who are you looking to meet here is another question that you can have at the ready. And finally, how might I be a resource to you? Because I work in public relations, I know photographers, I know web developers, I know digital marketers, I know event planners, I know a lot of different kinds of people. And it may be that one of them would be a useful resource to you. So it's not the first person that you meet. It may be someone else that's in their circle. Just like Bruce was in my circle, and I had no use for Rachel, but I knew that Rachel would be a good contact for Bruce and vice versa. So think about how you might represent a resource to someone else, because you know people who are in aligned fields. Like I know people who are in digital marketing, or who are in sales training, or who are in graphic design, branding, photography, and so on and so on. Okay, I would like to hear from the group. What are your favorite questions? What are the questions you like to ask so that you can get to know other people a little better when you're in a networking setting?
Hi, Janet. I'm sorry. I'm not quite sure what to say here, but I really appreciate this presentation, and I'm in the middle of transition, so I can't really speak to your questions. I'm kind of one of those people that does a little bit of everything, and I'm not quite sure how to market myself, because I know so many different skills, and am interested in so many different things. So that's all I can say for now. I wish I could say more.
Okay, but you know, what are the questions that you would want to ask somebody else so that they would be more interesting to you?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat where I don't have specific questions because I'm kind of more of a vibe person. But I will say I like to use my 2 ears more than my mouth and kind of ask people more about them and get people talking about them so I can learn about who they are and then really express an interest in who they are as a person and things that are important to them in their personal life in addition to professionally.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, you can ask somebody, you know, what's a meaningful experience you had relative to X, right? What's a meaningful experience that you had with your family? What's a meaningful experience that you had with your community? I mean, you know, those are questions that you can get to know people on a more personal level. It doesn't always have to be strictly business.
You know, if I may, I often will do something like this. I'll say, I'll use you as an example, Jan. Jana, it's really nice to meet you. What made you decide to come to this event today?
Well, then you can talk about your goals. Are you
Right.
there to recruit resources, to learn from the speaker, to meet new people, to connect with the people that you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's worked really well for me, you know, so.
Mhm.
You can also try to find a point of connection, right? So maybe how'd you come to hear about this event? Who do you
Right.
know here? Oh,
Mhm.
so-and-so invited me. Oh my gosh, I know so-and-so. And then now you have a mutual reference point, right? You can start talking about your relationship with so-and-so.
Mhm.
Yeah, that warms things up. Linda put into the chat a couple of questions. What got you interested in name of field and what keeps you
Mhm.
interested? what got you interested and what keeps you interested. Those are good.
Yeah, those are good. And, and those will also give you an indication of the kinds of problems and the kinds of clients, that a person would want to be working with. Okay, so Shira, you mentioned about business cards, and of course, business cards are very important. I personally think that you're naked without a business card, and you should consider your business card to be your paper partner. And what I mean by that is 2 weeks from now, someone's going to pick up your business card and they're not going to remember exactly where you met or what it was that you talked about. And they're really going to be at a loss. And then they're not going to get in touch with you because they're going to be embarrassed that they don't remember what it was that went on because they forgot to follow up with you and now they've just got your business card. So I know that some people like to connect on LinkedIn as a first step if they're meeting someone at an event and they don't bother with business cards. I personally disagree with that because what happens when you connect on LinkedIn is you can figure out the date that you connected with the person, but you can't figure out what it was that made you want to connect with them. Unless you write them a specific message in your connection request, and you don't go through the app that's on your phone where you're just zapping each other, then you have no way of remembering who this person is, why you got in touch with them, why you connected with them. They're just another name in your connection world. So I would encourage you to think about how you give and accept business cards. So first of all, you want to make sure that you have a lot of cards. And I like to keep my cards in my left pocket so that when I give them out, I take them out with my right hand, and then I give them to someone else. And then I take their card and I put it in my right pocket of my jacket so that I will be able to keep them separate. I don't want to be giving out your card. I want to be giving out my card. So you want to make sure that you're using your pockets clearly. Your own cards in one pocket, the cards you collect in the other pocket. Now, somebody gives you their card and you say to them, I'd like to keep in touch with you. Do you have a card? Take a minute to look at the card and find something that you can say about it. Say, oh, so your office is in such and such, in this neighborhood or in this city, or, oh, I see that your cell phone number is from a different area. How is it that you came to live in this area, right? So take a minute to look at the business card and find a way that you can make something to comment on about it. And in the same way, when you give someone your business card, you want to make sure that they have a chance to look at it before they put it in their pocket so that they can say something about it to you. Okay, further on business cards. I like to write a note so that I can remember when I met the person, the name of the event, or anything that we talked about. And especially, I like to write down what I promised them. There's 3 things that you can give someone, and they all start with the letter I. So the first is introduction. You're going to introduce this person to someone in your circle who they would find of interest. So that's the first I, introduction. The second I is invitation. You're going to invite them to attend a webinar with you, or attend an event with you, or to have coffee with you. So you've got introduction to someone in your circle. You've got invitation to get together, perhaps at another event or for a coffee. And then the third I, this is the most valuable one, I think, and that's information. You want to be giving something that will be valuable to that person. You can give them a newsletter, an article. You can give them a podcast that you were on. You can give them a checklist or something else that you've developed that you give away for free to people who you meet along the way. So you want to be giving someone something with the letter I, an introduction, an invitation, or some information. And I write that on the back of the business card because I'm going to be meeting several people tonight, and I don't want to forget what it is that I promised to send to you. Now, if it's at all possible, make your business card distinctive. So if you are an attorney, I hate the scales of justice. I mean, that is just so trite, right? Better to not have anything than to have something that everybody knows and, you know, is not at all original. So you can see here, I have my logo, and it's the letter F, and it's embedded in the shape of an octagon. Why an octagon? Because I'm not a round peg, I'm not a square peg, I'm an octagonal peg. I'm different than a lot of people that you meet. You probably don't meet many public relations professionals. And even so, my experience, as I mentioned before, is Wall Street and lawyers and nonprofits. So not too many people have worked in all those different fields. So this is a distinctive part of my business card, my logo. And people ask me about it, and then I explain how it works. Okay,
I
you've
can
met
just share my,
people.
if I can just share, Janet, the way I make my business cards distinctive is I put my picture on it so that people
Yes.
can actually remember who I am.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay, so once you've exchanged business cards, then do not do this. Do not collect all these cards and put them in a pile in your desk and never get in touch with these people. Do not wait 2 weeks to get back in touch with people because they've moved on and they've forgotten that they had that conversation with you, even though they wrote notes on the back of the card that you gave them. Do not forget to send them anything that you promised them of the introduction, invitation, or information. And finally, if you have a newsletter, do not automatically add them to your list. You're not allowed to do that. It's bad hygiene. Instead, what I do is I say, I've really enjoyed speaking with you. And by the way, I have a monthly newsletter where I talk about public relations and marketing. Is that something you would be interested in? And the person will say yes or no, and I'll say, you know, fine. I'll send you the current issue, and there's a link so that you'll be able to subscribe, and you can keep in touch with me on an informal basis. And if they say, Janet, I already get too many newsletters, I say, fine, that's okay. But I want you to know that in my email signature, I have my newsletter and I have a link to subscribe. So you're still going to be reminded about my newsletter. Okay, so let's think about what kind of groups people might get involved with. There are what I call heterogeneous groups. That's like a Chamber of Commerce or a Business Network International. And then there are homogeneous groups like the American Bar Association or the American Medical Association, where people have the same background. And you have to decide which groups are going to be most valuable to you, right? So if you want to be in a heterogeneous group where people have all different kinds of backgrounds, then these are some of your options. And it may be that, as I mentioned earlier, you're in a group that you all serve the same client, but you might have very different backgrounds. Remember, I mentioned that I do public relations and marketing, and I used to work with nonprofits, and I was at an event where this fellow who had a social impact business was at, right? So our businesses were very different, but we both were working with nonprofit clients. So that's one kind of group that is different backgrounds, but working in the same area. But it could be that you're a member of a Chamber of Commerce where you're going to have, you know, a doctor, a dentist, a lawyer, an accountant, a bookkeeper, someone who has a bakery shop, someone who has a laundromat, and so on. Now, if you're in a homogeneous group, that's where everybody has the same background. It could be that you all have the same profession, right? Public relations, marketing, doctor, accountant, lawyer, and so on. It could be that it's a local chapter of a national organization, so people who are in the same geographic area. It could be a certain affiliation within that group. So you might have a women's group or an Asian American group within that. And so when you're thinking about the groups that you want to be involved with, you want to consider, do you want to be with people who are similar to you? Or do you want to be with people who are different from you? And consider how you can even get involved in other groups by going to an event with a client who is going to be participating in something that's particular to likely their industry. Okay, so we've talked about in-person groups for the most part. Now we're going to talk about virtual networking, because as much as we want to go back to in-person events, still there are a lot of events that are taking place online. So here's something that Shira mentioned. You have to be in it to win it. You have to show up. This goes for in-person networking as well. Now, a lot of groups have made it very easy to join because they know that you don't have to pay to rent the room, you don't have to pay for food, so they're keeping their costs very low. And that means it's an opportunity for them to expand their membership by having totally virtual meetings. And as I said, you can ask a referral source or a client if you want to expand and get involved with other groups. One of the things that's difficult about virtual networking is you can't really have a one-to-one conversation with one person, right? Because everybody's all in the same group and there's a conversation going on at the same time, so you really can't isolate one person and talk to them. And as for your elevator pitch, it has to be very short because there isn't enough time for everybody to be able to give their 30-second elevator pitch. So here's a tip so that you can deal with these limitations. One is to customize your Zoom background. As you see, I have here, I have my name, I have my contact information, and I have my logo. So this is a way that I can be putting myself forward. Now, I didn't do it tonight, but oftentimes next to my name, where it says Janet Falk, I put public relations so that people will remember what it is that I do in my business. The important thing about changing your background is it is a picture frame. And you can look at Shira's picture and she's right in the middle of it. So what I am using is a lot of white space where the informative elements are on the border. So that way, more of the information is clearly displayed. So here's an example of a virtual group that I was involved in. And you can see how many people did not customize their background. So this is an old picture. You can see my background is a little bit different. I am in the top row, second from the left. You can see the woman next to me has a view of New York City, and she has her logo and so on. You can see that there's a fellow in the left column in the second row, and that's the name of his law firm in the background there. But pretty much everybody else is just in their office or in their bedroom, what have you, and they are not using this opportunity where they could be broadcasting their contact information and letting people know more about them. So it's very easy to come up with this kind of background. You go to Canva, C-A-N-V-A, canva.com, and they have a template, and you can create your own template, just like I did, so that you can be more distinctive in the virtual network. Now, here's another thing that you can do, and that is to share your contact information. So you want to keep this as a draft email. And that way you can simply copy and paste and put it in the chat so that other people can get your contact information. And if you save it as a draft email, you will never worry, did I put the phone number correctly? Did I remember to put .com on my email address? So copy and paste your draft email in the chat so that other people will have it readily accessible. You can see how I did it. I have my name, have my company name. I explain something about the work that I do. I have my website, my phone number, and my email address. And I can simply copy and paste, know that my email address and my phone number are absolutely correct. I don't have to worry. Here's something else that you can do with the chat. You can connect with the other people who are there. Look at the participant list and check it more than once. If there's anybody that you know, say to them privately by scrolling to their name in the chat list. Say to them privately, you know, hi Shira, long time no see. What happened with X and X, you know, that we talked about last time? And you can also reach out to the people that you want to know, right? Remember that you are looking to make more connections with new people. And so you want to be able to find them in the attendee list, and then you can click on their name and send them a message through the chat.
Janet,
And of course, in Zoom, you're able to save the chat conversation.
Janet,
Shira?
can I share a success story with that? It's funny you mentioned the whole, chat with somebody you haven't seen in a long time. I ended up getting a very big client because of it. I was on randomly. I was on this networking. It was a chapter meeting. I hadn't been to this group, and I don't know when. And it turns out that this old colleague of mine, a consultant, was in this group. And so I privately chatted her, hey, Liz, just like you said, right? Been a while. Wow. She's like, oh, Shira. I said in the chat, I'm like, hey, you want to do a Zoom coffee? She's like, absolutely. Well, one thing led to another. We had the Zoom coffee, reconnected. Turns out our businesses are very synergistic. And then within like weeks, she ended up referring me this very big client, right? All because I just did a little quick hi and an outreach.
Right. And this just proves, again, you never know who is in someone else's circle. Right? It's not you already knew Liz, but you didn't know that this potential client was in her circle. Right. Okay. So as a reminder, you can do the same program of tactics as we mentioned earlier. Go to the website, identify the leaders of the organization, reach out to them in advance, and so on and so forth. So I think this is familiar. And then you're going to get in touch with them, say hello to them when you're in the Zoom call so that they will remember you. Now, oftentimes when you're in this large room, you're going to be dispersed into smaller breakout rooms so that you can have more intimate conversations. And you know what happens when you get into these small rooms? Everybody's looking around saying, who's in charge? What are we supposed to do here? I don't know what's going on. So you should step up and take the lead and say, my name is Janet Falk. I'm a public relations professional, and I think we should follow this plan, right? I'm going to give my elevator pitch. I'm going to put my contact information in the chat, and then I'm going to call on the next person. Let's keep it to 1 minute so that everyone has a chance to participate. So this way, everybody knows what they're supposed to do. They're very relieved that you have stepped up to the plate and given them instructions about what it is that they're supposed to do. And they're going to keep it to 1 minute because that's what you told them to do. And that way, everyone will have a turn to participate. So when you find yourself in the small breakout room, be the leader and take charge. All right. What happens when you still have time? Ask the group a question, something that is not specific to a particular person, but you can say, what other networking groups are you in? What are you doing about marketing? What do you think about having a newsletter? And so on and so forth. So you want to get a little conversation going if you still have time. And then when you go back to the main room, you can say, we really had a great conversation, and Barbara and Jean got in a dialogue about what is the best way to do X, and so on. Okay, here we're going to summarize everything that we've talked about tonight. Why networking? As scary as it is, you have learned to build a welcoming committee. You have learned to warm up the room. You have learned to reach out in advance to people who are going to be at the event. You have connected with the movers and shakers of the organization, and they want to recruit you to be a member. So you're going to be a sought after person. You won't walk into that room cold. Other people are there and they want to meet you. You've thought about your goals. If you want to be collecting resources, as I do, then you want to talk to several people in that evening. If you want to reconnect with people that you already know, then make sure that you circulate among those folks. Are you there to learn from the speaker? Take notes about what the person presents and find a way that you can be sharing those ideas with others in your circle, whether in a report back to the company or people who are on your newsletter list or people that you want to be apprised of whatever it is that you have heard. Make sure that you have thought about your elevator pitch and practiced it and timed it so that you know you can deliver it smoothly and in a 30 to 45 second time frame. Make sure that you are comfortable asking questions besides, what brings you to this event, which of course is a very popular question, as Michael said. But I like to find out what kind of clients do you work with? What kind of problems do you like to solve? What kind of solutions do you offer? So that I can be thinking of who might need your services or who might align with you as you're delivering those services. Find a way that you can have business cards that are not like everybody else's, and make sure that you spend a moment looking at the other person's card, comment on it, find a way that yours can be different, and make a note of what it is that you have promised this person. Did you promise them an introduction? Did you promise them an invitation? Did you promise them information, something that you have read or spoken about or heard about? And think about the difference between in-person and virtual networking. Make sure that your background is distinctive so people can learn more about you. Have your contact information handy so that you can just copy and paste and put it in the chat. Have individual conversations with the people that you meet and step up to lead the discussion in the breakout room. So here is my contact information so that if you are interested, we can have a conversation about your plans. Do you want to practice your elevator pitch? Do you want to be introduced to reporters? Are you thinking about a newsletter? Do you want to be more active on LinkedIn? These are things that I can talk about. So you have my contact information here. And as you can see, I have a monthly newsletter. I have a lot of information for free on my website. You can go into the resources section and you can download a lot of information there. All of my newsletters since 2013 are on my website. So you can get other kinds of ideas from me there. And I'm happy to speak with you, as I mentioned earlier. Shira is going to send you a link to a page on my website where many of the things I have discussed tonight are available to you in this ebook. You just give me your email address and it will be sent to you.
So actually, Janet, the way we work this group is that a lot of people joined us through Meetup, and I actually don't have the email addresses for.
Oh, okay.
So we're going to have to reverse this, if that's okay. So Janet, would you like to have folks write to you directly if they're interested in?
Of course.
And you can send them the link.
Yes. Yeah. If they write to me directly, I'm happy to send them the ebook.
And
It's called 3 Lessons to Improve Your Success in Networking.
And I understand that a lot of the content that you shared here is actually also in that ebook, correct?
That's correct. And for example, the sample email that you can be sending to introduce yourself to the leaders and officers of the networking group so that they will want to write back to you because they will want to recruit you as a member. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Janet. I'm looking at the time here. Anyone have any last minute thoughts, questions for Janet before we wrap up?
That was awesome. Thank you.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. Which part are you going to be able to implement?
All of it. No,
That's what we like to do.
I have a lot of work to do. I'm behind. So this has been a great refresher and reminder, and yeah, no, I have a lot of work to do, so thank you.
You're welcome. I'm happy to help.
Yeah, this is like definitely a nice path that you've laid out to follow.
Highly,
Yes.
highly practical. Yeah, that's really great. All right, so with that, let me just first of all thank Janet. Round of applause, Janet. Fabulous.
Mhm.
So thankful and grateful for your pearls of wisdom. And just sort of to wrap this up, so for those of you who are new to BoomerWorks, we have these monthly educational programs free of charge. If you go to boomerworks.org, if you're not already on our mailing list, feel free to subscribe. Just go to the join button in the upper right-hand corner. You'll also see our programs, upcoming programs under the Meetup tab. And we have recordings just like this under the Training Center tab. And you can just drop down, and this one will be we have a Marketing Your Business tab, and that's where this will be. So with that, we'll wish everyone a blessed evening. Look forward to seeing you in a future event. And with that, we'll say have a great night.
Okay, thanks very much, Shira. It was fun for me.
Thank you.
Thank you